My name is Keith Morris and I'm editor of the Knutsford Guardian. I'll be putting the questions to the candidates on your behalf this evening.
I'm David Lomax. I'm the Liberal Democrat candidate. I'm 54 years old. I'm a teacher. I'm head of special needs in a school, a mainstream secondary school, and this is the first time I've actually stood for Parliament.
My name is George Osborne. I'm 38 years old, and I was until a couple of weeks ago the Member of Parliament for Tatton, and that's what I'm planning to be in about a week's time, but that's up to you.
I'm Sarah Flannery, the independent candidate for Tatton. I was born in Hampshire and raised in Ireland, and I spent 26 years of my life in Tatton. I've been married for 26 years too, and I have two daughters, both of whom have gone through the school state system. I've always loved Tatton, and it's a privilege to be here.
I'm Richard Jackson. I've been the Labour candidate for the last 3 years. I'm a farmer's son. I grew up in Ashley. I work locally as a vet. I'm also a trustee of Mind, the UK's largest mental health charity. I now live in Wilmslow, and apart from the poetry candidate, I'm the only person sat before you tonight that actually lives in the constituency.
Good evening. Organic gardener and organic poet, and I've lived in the constituency for 30 years.
Pedestrianisation has been a major topic in the town after the publishing of the Knutsford Town Plan. Would you, as candidates, support or be against the plans to pedestrianise the town centre if you were elected?
Well, I know that the majority of people said that, or expressed an interest in the town plan's suggestion that pedestrianisation of the central part of King Street seemed to be the hot favourite. One of the things that struck me was something that Janet Daly said, and she said, we're very bad at actually looking at something and thinking, do you know, that sounds as if it could be a good idea, let's give it a try. So I think it would be worth looking at, and perhaps starting trialling maybe evenings and on a Saturday, for example, and just seeing what the general feeling is. But certainly the hot favourite seemed to be the central part of King Street. I'm
100% for pedestrianisation. You know, we've just had this excellent Knutsford Town Plan. You know, you can read it online. It was 75% of the community wanted pedestrianisation. You know, during this campaign, I've been going round the constituency. I've actually taken a table, set up a stall, and have been speaking to people. A week last Saturday, I set up outside Starbucks, the newly closed Starbucks on Regent Street, and that's a whole story in itself, really. And I just spoke to people. It was a Saturday afternoon. It was interesting that there were more people from outside Knutsford than actual Knutsford residents. There were people from Liverpool, there were people from London, Northwich, and they were all in favour of pedestrianisation. You know, Knutsford's got so much to offer. I've spoken to the lovely ladies at the Heritage Centre. They would love to be doing walks around Knutsford, you know, the Elizabeth Gaskell, the Cranford connection. At the moment, we have these minute little pavements to walk along, and it's just not possible. Yes, we've got to think about it really carefully. Obviously, there is some businesses that are against pedestrianisation, but I personally am 100% for it, and we can do it. We really can.
My initial reaction some years ago when I first looked at this was to support it. I thought it was a sensible idea. I've got 2 young kids and I know what it's like walking along Bottom Street. But the more I've thought about it and the more I've talked to some of the small shops on Bottom Street, the more concerned I am that actually it would put some of them out of business. And the one thing we've got to do in Knutsford is keep those small independent shops and not let the town just be taken over by big chains, high street chains. And I'm concerned that that might happen. And certainly that is the view of the people who actually run the shops there. And I think we need to be careful. Of course, whoever is the MP for Tatton after the election is also the Member of Parliament for Wilmslow. And there, actually, pedestrianisation, I think, hasn't really worked in the town centre. So you need to be very careful because you can't really reverse this once you do it. I mean, once you get rid of the road, you're never going to reopen it. And so I think one thing worth thinking about, if we really want to take this forward, is an idea, and I agree with Sarah on this, maybe trialling some Saturday mornings where we close it and see what happens to the trade with the local shops. But if we find there's a big drop-off in the trade with the local shops, and we find that the shops start closing and the shops start being boarded up, that would be the death of the town centre, and I really would want to avoid that.
Yes, while Richard was in Knutsford last weekend, I was in Wilmslow, and I was hearing exactly the same as George has said, that some people in Wilmslow were saying that the idea of the pedestrianised bit has just not worked. Now, there are other towns where that has been the same. I would say, from my knowledge of Knutsford, that street really does cry out from having the traffic taken away from it. It is very narrow, the pavements are very narrow, there are cars parked on the pavements, it's making buggies and wheelchairs difficult to get down the pavements on many occasions, which I have walked down there, so I can understand the need to take traffic away from it. I think the most important thing is, from the shopkeeper's point of view, there needs to be adequate car parking, which will bring people in so they can actually get to those shops, even if they can't park right in front of it. And not only does it need to be adequate car parking, but it needs to be similar car parking which is available perhaps in other towns in East and West Cheshire, Northwich has free car parking, so no wonder people will go and use the shops there perhaps rather than come and use shops elsewhere. So I think there needs to be more of a level playing field in the way car parking fees are charged across East and West Cheshire. So yeah, I would also favour a trial and see if it is successful and it's not having too much of a detrimental effect on those shopkeepers.
I live in Wilmslow, and pedestrianisation, I can see no other way of having the centre of Wilmslow. All those shops, you know, to have cars going down there, I think it would be a nightmare. Yes, there are problems. There are a few closed shops, not that many actually on the pedestrianised area. You know, pedestrianisation has worked okay in Wilmslow. The key about Wilmslow is they've got a new multi-storey car park on Spring Street off Water Lane, and that's the real problem in Knutsford, is finding somewhere to park. And if we did have pedestrianisation, we've really got to look at that. We've got a beautiful town, we've got to be very careful about not spoiling the character of the town, but if we could find some way of having some sort of small multi-storey car park, that would be key